Hi everyone, it's Tiffany, aka Royal Ames. I am back after quite a hiatus from YouTube. Now you're probably wondering, or more likely not, what I was up to while I was away from YouTube. And the answer is LARPing. I started LARPing about a year ago and I have fallen in love with it. So today I want to go over a few tips for people who are just starting out their LARP journey. So first and foremost, if you don't know, what is LARP? LARP stands for live action roleplay, and I would call it a mix of D&D, but in reality, and collaborative storytelling. So I started a year ago in the LARP that I still play today called Twin Mask, which is a high fantasy, lightest touch boffer LARP with a focus of high immersion. Now that's a lot of words to basically say that it's a combat LARP that uses foam weapons where you're not really trying to whack people very hard, and a huge focus of it is the storytelling and being immersed in a world that is not our own. LARPing can be an incredible exercise in marrying of so many creative pursuits of physical fighting, storytelling, acting, costume making, prop making, and so much more. But this is not a video about that. To the tips. First, when you're starting out, be sure to familiarize yourself with the system, the rulebook, and the world of the LARP. This doesn't mean you need to memorize the entire rulebook. If it's anything like Twin Mask's rulebook, it probably is quite long and has a lot of information. But the way to get the best out of your LARP experience is to have an understanding of what system and what you're playing. However, you shouldn't be afraid to ask for clarifications. A lot of LARPs have quite a lot of information, and many LARPers, because we're all here together to work together to tell a story, are not going to mind an occasional, hey, can you clarify this for me? But in the end, the rulebook has quite a lot of information that will help you get familiar and feel more comfortable in your first LARP game. Next, don't worry about your costume. It's totally fine. Something I noticed a lot of new players have concerns about are looking at pictures of other people's costumes in the LARP and despairing that, oh, my costume isn't good enough, oh, I don't know if I have enough in my costume, and things like that. While you can start out with an elaborate costume, it's just as fine as starting out with something simple. In the end, with LARP, kits and garb evolve and add over time, so a lot of these people you're looking at that may have these crazy garbs have probably been working on them for quite a bit of time, and even then, people enjoy different parts of LARP. So if you really enjoy costume making and you want to dig into that, then do that. But when you're starting out, having a simple costume is totally fine. Now, if you're really into video games, like me, part of the appeal may be to live in this fantasy world and be in an RPG video game, basically. But my next tip is, don't expect it to be like a video game. In the end, a LARP is a collaborative storytelling effort. And while you may get the familiarity of RPGs or video games, in the end, you're not the only player in this game. Many LARPs are not going to have quest markers like a video game. They're not going to have tutorials or just loot hanging around. It's not like you kill a monster and that's how you farm your gold or whatever. Again, I'm speaking kind of particularly to Twin Mask, but I feel like this applies a lot to other LARPs because the big difference is you're not the only player. This is a collaborative effort. If you go in thinking it's exactly like a video game, you may miss out on some of the more beautiful connections and moments that you can make. And that brings me to my next thing. Find and make connections. LARP is all about collaboration, and finding and making those connections are what gonna make you feel more like you belong in the world, because in the end, that is what it's about, right? It's not you just existing in a fantasy world on your own. You are there with other people. Maybe you have a contentious relationship with someone. Maybe you really hate someone's character. But those kinds of stories come from connection. So don't be afraid to reach out and talk to other characters, talk to NPCs. Also, if your LARP is set up for this, make those connections before you even go. If you're able to make in-game world connections, someone's best friend, someone's family, someone's longtime rival. Or if you have something like in Twin Mask where we have multiple cultures, finding that group will also give you a head start of making those connections. But as we talk about possibly contentious character interactions, we come to the next thing. Be prepared to manage your bleed. Now, if you don't know what bleed is, it basically is the bleed over between yourself and your character. Now, bleed can be a whole long subject on its own and how to manage it, but a few quick tips. Make sure you have separation between yourself and your character. And even if your character is really just you, remember that it's your character interacting with other people and not yourself. Bleed is gonna happen. It's not like if you have bleed, you've done something wrong. The important thing is managing it and making sure you have those separations between yourself and your character, and what your character does, and what other people's characters do versus what the player behind those characters do. This is very important if you're in a conflict-heavy environment, or if you have a lot of CVC, or character versus character conflict. But like I said, that's a whole topic on its own. If you would like to learn more, I'll link an article commonly shared from Nordic LARP in the description box, and I also am planning on making a whole video about bleed itself. And finally, find the parts of LARP that you like and don't be afraid to dig deep into that. In the end, everyone finds enjoyment in different things. Everyone LARPs for different reasons, and everyone may have different play styles. If you really like combat and want to dig into that, go for it. If you really like exploring the metaphysics of the world or building deep character connections, do that. If you really like personal plot and those connections you have with people. In the end, you need to find what makes you happy because you're LARPing for you. So find what makes you happy, and maybe it's multiple things. I myself play a pretty combat-heavy character, but I also am a huge nerd in game and really love emotional personal roleplay. So it's really up to you, but find what interests you and don't be afraid to explore more. All right, I think that wraps up my tips for new LARPers. I am sure that there are many, many more that I can think of and other people can think of, but hopefully that gives some of y'all a nice starting point and is helpful in any way. On that note, if you can't tell, I'm gonna be starting to make quite a few videos about LARPing and my experience and things like that. I'm very excited about them. I'm excited to be back here and hopefully be able to talk more about my personal experiences with LARP and every other kind of nerdy thing that I've been up to. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe, but for now, Ames out.